And now, we will go ahead and get started here. To kick us off on the CSS side, we have Michael, who will be covering a few different updates we've made to Core.
Thanks, Rachel. Okay, first up, we recently introduced the dark variation of our navigation, and in this last sprint, we added some enhancements to it, mostly to do with minor spacing, but the most notable of which would be that there's now a background color applied to the active navigation. So you can see that here in this demo. Then we also introduced a compact variation of our pagination component. And so this is the default pagination, and then that's the compact. So notably, it removes the current page of input field and text, and then also removes the first and last page links in the pagination navigation. And then lastly, we added a couple of demos illustrating how to have various states in the table component, and one of which is a loading state. And so for data that's currently loading, this is using the empty state component in combination with the spinner component. And then this is the empty state of the table, and this just again using the empty state component to display this empty state for the table. And that's it.
Great, thanks, Michael. And Matt.
Hey, thank you, Rachel. Can you see my screen?
Yes, yeah, we can.
Okay, so two noteworthy yet fairly small updates. One of which is to the tooltip text alignment. So with the modifier added to the tooltip, we can now align the text left as opposed to align center, which is the default left alignment there. And then the second is a bug fix to the type ahead select variant that spans the input. The input spans now all the available space instead of getting cut off like right about here. In the previous CSS support, it was getting cut off right about here. So now it spans the entire width. So anywhere you click within this space will initiate that drop down. That's it.
Great, thank you. All right, over on the React side, we have Jakob.
Yes, hi, thank you. One second, share screen. Okay. All right. So for the first one, I fixed the controlled expandable that we have. So now if you, toggle the expandable using the prop, where is it? It's expanded here. So you can toggle it and it should probably do its thing. That's the first one. For the next one, the drop-down, actually the app launcher component and other drop-down like components, there was a small improvement there to make them work better with router components. So here's an example. Before, you would basically add your router component as a child item into the application launcher item, which should still work. So that's not really a breaking change. But the better way to do it now would be to use the component prop to pass in your router component. I know this says text, but imagine this is your router component. And there are more examples of how to do this on our docs. So here we see application launcher with router link. And you can look at the code example here that we have. That should hopefully make it clear on how to use it. And you can see that if you don't do it this way, then like clicking on the very edge of the drop-down item probably won't work for you. But after the change, it will. So it makes the whole item clickable if you have a router link. And that's that. And Rachel, since I got to head out early, is it okay if I do the website?
Yeah, go right
Okay.
ahead.
Okay. For the website, it's still in staging, but the change was made to update the whole site to use the new Red Hat font. So all the font used on the website should be Red Hat font, and then we updated some pages here. Here's the typography page that's now showing how to get the Red Hat displaying Red Hat text fonts, and all the examples have been updated down here. And there's just a little like alert that basically tells you that it's still an opt-in feature. But we have an additional page here on how to properly opt in into the Red Hat font. And you can see that this information was pulled into the documentation section. Yeah, that's it.
Great. Thank you, Joachim.
Thank you.
And Rebecca.
Great. Can you guys all see my screen?
We can.
Great. So I worked on adding support for Flex in React. So there's all these different examples of what you can do now in the React library. And to control all of these different Flex classes, we're using a cool thing that Nicole came up with. And you just pass in the breakpoint mods prop with the modifier that you want. And then if there's a breakpoint, you add that to the object. So it's really nice. And then I also worked on adding some additional control to the tabs component. So if you pass in mount on, can't remember, mount on enter. It's been a while since I worked on this. It won't actually mount the section until you click on it. And then you'll get the section that appears once you clicked on it. And then unmount on exit will do something similar. It'll just make it disappear and only have the correct section that you're actively on in the DOM. That's it for me.
Great. Thank you, Rebecca. Evan?
Hey, yep. Let's get my screen pulled up here. Okay, so we've been building out the overflow menu component. And just a quick heads up, it's still experimental, so any feedback you have is definitely more than welcome. So we've got a few different kind of options here. So the overflow menu, the idea there is if you have a horizontal menu of items, like in this top line, we can display them above a certain breakpoint. And then as you, actually let me get rid of this side menu here. As you size down, they'll actually collapse into the drop down. So you can see we've got all 5 items there. The second line here just shows you can also include different groups. And as you size it down, again, you can kind of style the drop down as you'd like there, but we've got all of them in there. The bottom 2 options are actually a couple different configurations that you can add here. So the first one, additional options. If you do want to kind of force the drop down to show and put some options in there that you'd prefer not to be in that horizontal view, you can use the additional options flag. And so you can see we've got 6 options here, and we've chosen to put the 7th as additional option, so that drop down appears and you can select it there. And when you size down, that does still work as normal. So we'll see all 7 options there still in the drop down. It just kind of keeps that drop down viewable above the breakpoint. And similarly, we've got another option called persistent options that basically is going to do the same sort of thing, but instead it'll do it for the horizontal list item. So since these are viewable by default above the breakpoint, when we size down, we've set this primary button to stay persistent. So everything else collapses into the drop down, but you'll see that primary button is still viewable. It doesn't get pulled in there. So that's the overflow menu. And yeah, thanks so much.
Thanks, Evan. Jesse?
Hey guys, let me go ahead and share my screen. You see this? So I just have a really quick bug fix that I did for you guys. Basically, we noticed that when disabling a button HTML element, that you really should only have the disabled attribute, not the actual class. So there should only be, the class attribute should only be applied to elements that don't support the disabled attribute, like anchor tags. So I kind of just created a quick PR to fix this, and just to show that it works. If you inspect a disabled dropdown now, you can see that the button has the disabled attribute, but not the unnecessary class. And it's just a quick fix that I thought I'd share. That's pretty much it.
Thanks, Josie. Katie?
All right, let me pull up my screen here real quick. All right, cool. So got a couple things to show. First off, this is the table change I did. So by default, you'll have the selectable column in a table if you've given it the proper parameters. What I changed here was this specific header cell that acts as a select all functionality that you can click. I just basically enabled so you can actually just remove this one column. Everything else is selectable as normal, but there's nothing you can click up here that will select all of the options. So this is some preparatory work for the bulk select that we will be adding in, which the toolbar where this bulk select will live will actually control the select all. So just some foundation work there. Second, let's see, I've added a control variant to button. So this is a kind of more form-friendly type of button. You can see it here in the button variants. It works the same way as all these other variants. It's just a new property of that object. And I have also updated the examples in input group to use these buttons. This is matching to core, as well as the context selector, where the button in the menu will actually be the control button variant now. All right, third, there is now a compact styling flag for pagination. This is to match the thing that Michael was talking about earlier. So now there is a flag. Instead of getting the whole pagination, it becomes the select variant. You can see that it's just a tiny little flag there that you add to any old component. And finally, select now has an override prop for height. It already had one for width, and that is not the right example. So you can see our select component here. I actually already have the height override specified to 200 pixels, so it's actually doing a scrolling overflow auto. You can see if I turn off the max height property, it'll do the entire menu. So this is to customize if you have a really long list of items and you don't want it to scroll all the way down to the end of the page. You can just set a specific height that it will start to overflow at. And that's it for me.
Great, thank you. Titani?
So for the select component, I added a couple props because they had some hard-coded strings in there. So there's no results found text and the create text. So for a type ahead select component that is creatable, the text that would if I typed in something that didn't exist, you can now update this text to whatever string you want. And then if it's not creatable, there's no results found text. You can now update it. And that's it.
Thanks, Titani. We already went over the website issues, so I'm going to head on down to Design Docs. Matt Crono has a couple of Design Doc updates on alerts and notifications, as well as Wizard.
Hi, everyone. So let me clear out my screen. So there were two updates we did in this sprint, and these are currently up on the staging site. They will go live when the latest release updates the website. So the first update was to the alerts and notifications page, and this simply clarified a little bit. There was some confusion about usage of inline alerts and toast alerts, so I cleared that up a little bit. So this shows here that for an inline alert, you can have inline alerts can either have the close or dismiss button or not. So, but for a toast alert, toast alerts must always have a dismiss button on the alert. So I removed the examples that did not have that and clarified the text around that a bit. The other change that was made was to the wizard page to add the inline wizard, in-page wizard, which is now supported. So previously we just had a modal wizard, but this recognizes the fact that the wizard can now also be placed in the context of a page, explains any differences. For most of the examples, the content of the wizard itself and the behaviors are exactly the same. So I kept the documentation in terms of the modal wizard, which is, I think, still probably the primary or most common use of the wizard, but then also added some usage about some guidelines around what you need to do when you do decide to put the wizard in page. So that's about it. Any questions on any of that? If not, I'll turn it back to you, Rachel.
Thanks, Matt. Are there any questions for any of our presenters today? We're at the end of our agenda. We have tons of time for questions. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I'll be posting this video on YouTube and our YouTube channel. That's linked in our agenda, so feel free to check it out and share it. And any other questions that come up post this meeting today, feel free to post on our forum. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.